Hi everyone! This week I've been doing something that I've been planning for a long time now. I decided to finally get it off my bucket list because this was the perfect week to do it. Right now everyone's playing The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, a game that is just busting through the charts and anything else that stands in its way. So I decided to celebrate the game by bringing Hyrule home. I made a model of Hyrule from the original Legend of Zelda out of gingerbread. Now, I'm not changing over to a cooking channel. My first love will always be books and literacy. But I do actually have a degree in baking and pastry. I am a baker, even if I'm not currently employed as one for various reasons that don't have to do with poisoning anyone. But I do have the skills. The gingerbread land of Hyrule itself is made up of 16 individual squares of gingerbread, or tectonic plates as I called them in production. As you can see, it's gingerbread on the bottom, with a graham cracker layer on top. Each graham cracker represents one screen in the game. There are 8 crackers per square for a total of 128 graham crackers. The screens themselves are not the same proportions as they are in the game. Each screen in The Legend of Zelda is 11 by 16 Link sprites wide, which gives them proportions of about 2 to 3. I rounded that 11 down to 8, so the proportions are now 1 to 2, meaning my Hyrule is sort of squashed from north to south. It would have been more accurate to use 1.5 graham crackers per screen, but that would spoil the effect of dividing them into screens in the first place. The raw materials to make Hyrule were 8 packages of gingerbread mix, which made 2 tectonic plates each, and a little over 4 boxes of organic graham crackers. Why organic? That was what was on sale at Grocery Outlet. The plates and crackers are held together with a very simple royal icing recipe. It's just egg whites and powdered sugar. That same royal icing was also used for geographical features like mountains and trees. And as you'll probably immediately notice, the colors on the mountains vary wildly. It looks like each plate has a different color of rock icing, which is really strange because I only made 2 batches of the rock color. I can only assume that the color darkened in the refrigerator between work sessions. Where there was water and white stone, I used a simpler flood glaze of water and powdered sugar. The banks of the lakes and seas are canned frosting, just so it didn't overflow. This same frosting was also used for rivers and ponds, and the various stairs that appear throughout the world, some of which look very, rustic. Rustic, by the way, is culinary terminology for sloppy and bad. In the game, the rocks and trees you'll see are either brown or green. I decided to make the brown trees red instead, to set them apart from the rocks, and to give the southwest Lost Woods area kind of an autumn flavor, or a dead trees flavor. Here are my dungeon entrances. They're either cute or hilariously ugly, depending on your preference. I made them by piping dark chocolate outlines onto parchment paper, and then filling them in with colored white chocolate. The food coloring made the white chocolate seize up really badly though, so I ended up only having to use a drop or 2. So the dungeons look sort of pastel colored compared with the actual game. One of my biggest aesthetic divergences from the game comes in my graveyard, where I have multicolored gravestones. What are they? They're Pez. I wanted the Altoid-like peppermint Pez, but couldn't find it. Still, I'm happy with how festive this graveyard looks. It's like Day of the Dead in Hyrule. I also added a little spray of black aerosol food coloring to make it dingier. Certain things, however, were left out entirely for aesthetic simplification. For example, there's no doors. This here is the screen where the game begins on the overworld, but there's no door to meet the old man who offers you a sword. It's dangerous to go alone, but good luck this time. So, that was the creation of the world itself, but being a living thing myself, I don't see much use for a world unless you put living things in it. At this point in Hyrule's history, things were really bad and there weren't any houses. People were all living underground in caves, so the only thing living on the surface is monsters. Of course, we have to start with the Octoroks. They're the winners of the Perfect Attendance Award. My Octoroks are simply a star-shaped squirt of cake frosting, topped with a bright red sixlet. You know, those carob candies that look like perfectly round M&Ms? Also composed of sixlets are the Zoras. Well, actually, these are Zolas, as we used to call them before Link to the Past. Back when they were always bad guys and not nearly as attractive as Prince Sidon. My Zoras are blue sixlets with red frosting for fins and frills. The levers are nothing special. They're just an unadorned squirt of frosting in a vague cone shape, which isn't much more than they are in the game either. But let's take this opportunity to examine my dessert. It's brown sugar over royal glaze. I was going to use cinnamon sugar, but somehow there wasn't any in the house. My Tektites were basically made for me. They're just candy decoration eyes, which are available at Target or just about any grocery store. All I did was add a little red frosting to give them their trademark sleepy eye Garfield Joel Hodgson expression. The legs are a little too thick. They look more like octopus tentacles, but the eye is what makes it clear they're not Octoroks. Then there's my Armos Knights. Well, even in the game, they look like cute little teddy bears, so who am I to improve on Nintendo's design? My Armos are miniature gummy bears. It's really not worth the trouble to try and recreate a flying enemy in Gingerbread. The Pea-Hats, which the game calls the Ghost of a Flower, are just frosting cones like the levers, but topped with a miniature M&M. The cutest monster in my Hyrule, I think, has to be my Moblins. They're holding little spears, and they have little chocolate frowny faces with fangs, but what they really are, if you can see it at all, is the head of Batman. I got a box of Batman vs. Superman fruit snacks and tore through them looking for the blue Batman snacks, and then I added faces and feet. However, they still have Bruce Wayne's face on their tummies. I think we should just assume that's true of all Moblins. Cycloptic enemies are a tradition of the Zelda series. There's 6 of them in this game alone. The ghosts in the graveyard, called Genies, are one of those, so I used the same candy eyes I used for the levers, but I topped them with a dollop of white chocolate, so they look, more like the Ghostbusters logo, really. Finally, we've got the centaur-like Lynels. And these guys are even worse in Breath of the Wild than they were in the original Zelda, where they would swarm you. My Lynels are made of the same gummy bears as the Armos, but with an extra butt. This makes them hexapods rather than quadrupeds, but I'm sure they're not complaining. And that's my Gingerbread journey from beginning to end. Well, not quite the end. There's still one last thing you do with gingerbread. There's way more of this than I can eat, but, it seems like a waste not to at least enjoy some, so cheers! Here's to Hyrule, and Breath of the Wild, and many more great Zelda games to come. Ah!